Hi guys, Allison here, the bored housewife. I'm so excited that you are joining me for another episode. You guys have been so awesome. All my friends and family who has been saying the nicest things, thank you so much. To the new people here that have never met me before, welcome. You are in such a great community of people. And it was funny because I was so nervous putting, myself out there and putting these episodes out there. And now I'm nervous about oh man, is this topic going to be good enough for them? Like, are they going to relate to this? Are they going to think it's interesting? So, keep me posted, guys, what you're thinking, how you're feeling. I'm having a really fun time making this, and I just, enjoy the creative aspect of it as well as hearing your comments, your viewpoints on the topics I talk about. It's nice to know that, we have stuff that's relatable, and even if we aren't on the exact same path, we all can still relate to things, which is really neat. Today's episode is called Seasons of Life, and the reason why is I just recently heard this term, and so a friend of mine had made mention of it while she was talking about we weren't in that season of our life to be able to do that. And I was like, wow, I never heard of that before. But that is such a cool way to describe a time period in your life, instead of just being like, oh, that was a bad time for us or whatever. It was like, this was our season. And I just think that's so cool because, seasons all have their good and bad points. Some summers can be wonderful and some summers can be, hot as hell. Some winters can be mild and nice, and then, you get dumped on. You live in Texas, and you get dumped on with, feet of snow. Who would have thought, So, anyways, I just think that was cool. So, yeah, that's what I'm building the episode around today, and we'll just talk about what that means, and I have a really cool idea for a Disney movie that I'm going to share with you guys, and I swear Disney's going to want this afterward. But anyways, okay, guys, grab your drink, your beverage of choice. Cheers, guys. Let's have some fun. First things first, let's get to the cocktail of the hour. This classic beauty right here is called the Negroni. The Negroni is a more bitter cocktail. I really love the taste of it. I really like bitter things. I'll tell you. So I think I might have mentioned this in a previous episode, but anyways, I make myself like things when it's important for me to fit into a scenario. So I took Italian classes in high school, and my Italian teacher made mention that it was Italians and European, or specifically Italians, because he was from Italy. He grew up there and moved to the States when he was 17 or something. So he had said that Italians love bitter things. So they love Campari, it's an Italian liqueur. I'm not actually really sure what it is. It's just bitter. But they also love espresso and dark coffees and stuff like that. So I had in my mind that I was going to marry an Italian man, which is why I was in Italian class. I know, crazy. But yeah, so I was like, okay, so when I got to college age and stuff, and I started figuring out drinks and, drinking more than just beer or bubblegum juice, I don't know, whatever sweet crap they serve you when you're underage. But I started looking into this, and it's definitely an acquired taste. But it's a really classic cocktail. So let me tell you what's in it. So again, the Negroni. I do it off Allison recipes. So if you guys didn't see my Instagram post or Facebook post of how to make this lovely drink, I do Allison recipes. Okay, so if you look up on the computer and you see a Negroni recipe, no, it's not going to be exactly the same from what I told you. So you do what you want. But this is I do 2 parts gin, 1 part Campari. I do half a shot of sweet vermouth. I put in several dashes of bitters. You put in as much bitters as you would like. And then traditionally you serve it with an orange peel. So not like a whole slice, or I mean you could put a slice in there, but traditionally just an orange peel. I didn't have oranges, so I used lemon peel. Any like citrus like that. I wouldn't use a lime, but lemon and orange are pretty close when it comes to like cocktails, so it doesn't mess up the taste too much. I think an orange might make it a little bit sweeter. But you just use a shaving of the rind, and then you get the little like spritz off the rind, just that kind of like citrusy flavor. I like to rub it around the rim of the drink, and then you just pop it in there, and it just, kind of gives it a nice little flavor. So, yeah, this is the Negroni. Let me know what you guys think of it, and yeah, so let's get to it. All right, so the seasons of life. Okay, so this is kind of where like my head started to go when I heard this, and I'm sure everyone is familiar with the movie Lion King. And I don't know why, but sometimes I just like make up songs to songs that are already made in my head, and I just like put my own words into them. It's fun for me, I guess. I don't know. But I'm thinking that Disney can make a Seasons of Life movie, and they can just take the song from Lion King, Circle of Life, and wherever it says circle, you just put in seasons. Because honestly, like, I get the concept of circle, but seasons makes a lot more sense as far as the human, because we don't die and eat each other like lions. We go through milestones, we go through these moments in time, and then we die and we get, properly buried. We don't get to be put back into the earth. So I feel like the song could work really well for this movie, Disney. You have to do very bare minimum work. So keep that in mind. But no, like, it's kind of funny because, so much is changing, and I just want to preface this. I am not getting political, okay? This isn't a place where I'm going to talk about politics or anything like that. I'm just talking about the current nature of our society and, like, where things are headed. So I've noticed that Disney lately has gotten very woke, and they're putting out some more, like, progressive things, which, to each his own, whatever. Maybe it's great, maybe it's not. You decide for yourself. But I thought, like, hey, if they're going to start making this, like, real-ass shit, then maybe, tell a story of, like, what it really is. Like, what we're all really aiming for. Because I think some of us, this one included, was a little misguided as far as what it meant to find love and what, finding this partnership is. And I took a really hard kick in the ass to figure it out. So, now don't get me wrong. I love a good fairy tale. I love my Disney princesses. I was the biggest Cinderella fan as a child. But almost to the point where I'm like, oh, this is how it works. Like, I will be stuck in an attic for several years, and then Prince Charming will come and, like, take me away. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. Even, like, as I got older, like, watching the show Sex and the City, I was obsessed with that show. And I'm just like, I remember at one point I was like, yeah, I don't have to pay bills. Carrie Bradshaw, she just throws her bills in the garbage and buys Manolo Blahniks. Like, I can do that too. Like, no, real life is not TV, guys. I don't know if you know that, but it took me a while to figure that. I'm like 30 years old and, like, finally figuring things out for myself. But, no, like, I love the fairy tales. I wouldn't stop watching those. Like, I still watch them. I'm a Disney Plus subscriber. Like, I still watch those. But I just think it's kind of fun. Like, what would that movie look like? Like what would they do? So later in the episode, I'll share you some of my very interesting ideas in Disney. Call me, I'll write it for you. I'll direct it for you. I'll even be a voice. I can't animate it. I can't do that. I can't draw worth a shit. But I can make funny voices, and maybe I could play a character. Anyway, okay, I'm done selling myself. But yeah, they kind of already did something like this, and I guess it's called Feast. And it was a little short film, and I can't remember what movie I had watched. It was like in front of like another movie that came out, and I can't remember which one it was. But it was like this like kind of life little like season or few seasons through the eyes of this puppy. And I'll just give you a brief overview. This guy, single guy, finds the puppy. And like you never really see their faces. Like towards the end you kind of do, but most of the time you're just seeing like the puppy like reacting and stuff. So you see this single guy and he finds this puppy, and like from the instant he bribes the puppy to come with him with food. And so puppy and the guy, single guy, have this awesome life. Puppy gets to eat all this awesome food, junk food, it's like so great, whatever. Well, then single guy gets a girlfriend. So once girlfriend comes into the picture, she starts making all this like healthy shit, right? And the puppy just is not having it. He gets really sad and he has to like just eat his dog food and no more pizza, no more ice cream, Well, then guy and girlfriend break up. And then it's back on again. Like the guy's depressed. He's single again. So now puppy and guy have all this great food. But then the puppy is so sweet and he realizes that the guy is depressed. And he sees that this isn't the same. This is different. So the puppy ends up getting them back together. And, he's a little reluctant, but he's like, I'm just happy to see my owner happy. And then sure enough, a little baby comes along. And once the baby comes along, it's this like new relationship with the dog because the baby is like dropping food off of the high chair and the dog's like up there like, And so it's a whole new season for that dog. He goes through those ups and downs, but now here's this like, new chapter or whatever. So it's like they've kind of already done something like this. So I just think it'd be really kind of cool to see like a feature-length film, I guess. I don't know. I'm weird. I love cartoons. I love little Disney movies. But so when I heard the term seasons of life, I thought of it, and it wasn't in this way that we talk about milestones. So I think about so often when we talk about like what life is, we put them in perspective from like birthdays to, graduations, to weddings, to kids graduations, and it just kind of goes like that until you like having grandkids. And it's always like these like very specific times in our life. And I just feel like we kind of short ourselves when we think of life that way. Like a part of me thinks the gender reveal parties have come about just so that people have another reason to get together and celebrate. Like I think people are just trying to figure out ways to like, it's not so much to be like, oh, make a big deal of us, we're so important, as more of, hey, let's all get together and like have fun. Instead of like, I don't know why we can't just be like, hey, everyone, come on over and like have a party tonight. I think some people do that, but I think a lot of people are like, is it obligations that you guys put on each other or something? I don't know. I've never been invited to a gender reveal or like a baby shower or anything like that. Well, I guess I've been to a baby shower before, but you guys know what I mean. But anyways, I just like think that we're creating these moments as if they're milestones, and it's just kind of nonsense. Now, if you like that stuff, like more power to you. I think any reason to get together with family and friends is a great reason. Like you shouldn't, but I'm just saying you shouldn't have to have a reason. So coming into my next point. So I think that some people are just kind of existing. I noticed that like people have day jobs that they're not super interested in. It pays the bills. I call this like living for the weekends. And now I want to be very clear. I'm not putting anybody down that does that. Like, I've done that before. Or, I've done it for like, I had to work on the weekend. So I'm like living for my 2 days off. And that's a totally fine way to live. But I think that like creating all these moments and like living by milestones, like we're just shorting ourselves. And, a lot of older people say like, oh, life is short, like, okay, yes, of course it is. But I think it's especially short when you think of it as far as like Christmas to Christmas, birthday to birthday, graduation to next graduation, kid to now grandkid. I think when we think of them in that sense, it's like, yeah, your life is going to like flash by because you only have really a few moments. Like, we have 365 days a year to live. And I think most of us, our highlights are these times when, we can go on that big vacation or, the Christmas party or whatever it is. And so I'll tell you a story and a lesson that I learned, and I'm happy I learned it very young. So if you already know this, awesome. If you've never thought of this before, I hope this gives you something to kind of think about. So I was working in a cocktail bar in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and it was a very cool spot. It was a speakeasy, and it was really fun. But, eventually the fun wears off, and you get tired of that atmosphere. It's hard cocktail waitressing in an incredibly busy bar, and everyone's, drunk and wasted, and I had to like walk upstairs to serve drinks. The bartenders weren't always the nicest, so it's like there was a lot of bullshit. So I was standing there one night and I just like, I had just started working in the film industry, I think. And so I was still trying to keep that job, or maybe I was like just kind of had one job. And anyways, like I wasn't fully in the industry yet. I wasn't able to sustain myself from the industry yet. And so I was standing there one night and I just like was so angry and I was so upset and I didn't want to be there. And I was like, God, I just can't wait for my shift to get over. I just want to get out of here. Like, please, all you assholes leave now, please. And I was like thinking this, and then it just hit me. And I was like, I don't know how, like, I might be here still for a while. Like, this is my job. This is how I make a good portion of my rent money. This is how I feed myself. And I'm sitting here wishing this whole night away. And I was like, wow, like, I'm kind of, and it, like, all this, like, stuff kind of, like, whooshed over me. And, it wasn't all in that moment. I spent, like, a few days after that kind of thinking about it. But I was like, this is living. This is actually living. Like, I'm feeling, I'm having emotions. Even if I don't love what I'm feeling right now, I can change my attitude. It's not always bad here. It's actually pretty great most of the time. I work with some pretty great people. There are just a few that kind of, they get under your skin. Every place you work has that. But I was like, I really need to just step back and just take it in. And instead of living my life through these like, oh, until I get to here, until this happens, until my next vacation, like I really just need to soak in all of it. The good, the bad, the ugly, like whatever it is, I need to just take it in. And so once I did that, life literally like stopped. And it was like I was just living more so like moment to moment. And of course, like you plan for stuff, you still plan for trips and you get excited for things. But even till today, like, I might have a big vacation or I might have something huge planned, but I'm just like, okay, that's months away from now and that's then. And I have all this time. And it's like, even if I'm not doing anything, I just want to like take it in. Even if I'm staring at the wall, that wall is going, like, this is going to be a moment in my life, And so instead of like wishing it away, I decided that I'm going to try to take in as much as I can. And if you haven't done that yet, I suggest you to try it. because you really do end up missing out on a lot. You miss out on really microscopic moments that you would just like never imagine the significance in your life. You see things that you might not have seen before. You appreciate stuff that, you might hate your job, or you might, hate doing yard work or whatever. Because most of the time that's when we want it to be over with, right? Like my workouts. I hate like the concept of going and working out and just like dragging my feet. But then once I'm there and I'm in it, it's like, okay, wow, like I'm doing this, like my body's doing this, I'm lifting this weight, I'm like running or whatever it is. And it's just like, it's a really cool feeling to be living more so in the moment than wishing and wishing and wishing and wishing, because that's when life just goes. So how I see that concept relating to seasons of life is, sometimes we have these like really awesome seasons, and sometimes we have these really bad seasons. So I think all of us, we have these moments in time, like when I was in that job. I guess it was kind of week by week depending on the scenario, but towards the end, you just get really tired of stuff. And I was finally in like a steady film job, and I was just exhausted. And that was such like an interesting season for me, because I had to make this huge choice, and I had to take a gamble on myself that I will get another job, because this cocktail job that I had had for so long really did sustain me very well. And, I was making pretty decent money most of the time, but it was like I would work, 12 to 14-hour days all week, and then literally have to rush on Fridays and to get to the cocktail bar. And then I'm there Friday night and Saturday night. Friday nights, I would be up from like, Fridays I would be up from like probably 6 a.m., 7 a.m. to get to work on time, and then rush to get to work, and then I would be working till like 4 a.m. So almost 24 hours, so that's a really long day. But it's like, then I was able to like, okay, I can't do Fridays anymore, but I'm gonna still do Saturdays, because I wanted to keep that job for as long as I could. But then it even got to the point where Saturdays were really hard, and I was missing out on a lot with friends and just other like moments in my life. So I decided, I'm going to take a gamble on myself and do that. So that was like a really kind of like, you could say that was like a kind of a mixed spring, where you had days where they were like beautiful and sunny, and you think, oh yeah, summer's almost here. And then bam, winter hits, and you're just like, oh shit, okay, it's not over yet. This big snowstorm or whatever. Or you just have like a ton of rain, and it's just scary. And or tornado season, so that's where I think it's kind of interesting, like that term seasons, because like I think that we have like times where, like when I was getting married and figuring out like what my new life was going to be like, there were so many more ups and downs. But again, it was kind of like finding this very comfortable place while, again, kind of taking a chance on myself. So it's like, I think our seasons are kind of dictated by the different milestones that we make for ourselves. But the season is a time that's spent between the milestones, or spent between those moments where we're figuring things out. So I just really encourage everyone to try to live more in the moment and try to live season by season versus like milestone by milestone, because life is actually what happens when it's just nothing. Like when it's, you come home after a hard day and the dog has ripped the pillows apart and the kids are playing with feathers everywhere. Or it's like, oh, this is a funny story. My grandpa, whenever he was in charge of my mom and my uncles, I guess things would tend to get a little out of hand sometimes. He had different rules than my grandma did, I guess. But they tell the story of the basement would flood all the time. They are up in Iowa, and it just floods a lot. And so I guess when the basement had flooded, my grandpa let them put their swimsuits on and go in there swimming. Super dangerous, right? Well, grandma came home and she was like, absolutely not. Like, everybody out, and had to like ruin the fun. But it's like those kind of moments, like, that's living. Like, that is life. Like, me working in a cocktail bar, I met one of my best friends there. Like, I would not change that for anything. We had so many awesome conversations in that bar working together. There's just that's what it is. So it's like, although milestones are cool and they're fun to celebrate, that's not, to me, that's not life. And so, yeah, that's my take on that. So, like, another fun thought I had was, like, outside of Disney, like, have you guys ever seen the, like, scary Barbies where she's got, like, her smudged makeup and she's, like, sitting on the toilet? Kim's in the background. Like, to me, that's life, right? It's like, Disney, take inspiration from that. What can you make from that? But okay, I want to get into some of my ideas. So my first idea, is seeing like a person and this one's kind of plain. Like, we see a person and they're like having these different moments in their life, and like the seasons change or the weather changes, like based on like what's going on with them. So like maybe we see like a couple or a single person, and then they like meet up with someone, and like we see all these different seasons, kind of like a kid version of When Harry Met Sally. Like, that's one of my favorite movies, and I just love how they used the changing of the seasons to kind of depict where they were at. And like, obviously it was like a time shift because they were trying to like establish that time is going by or whatever. But I think it's cool how like the towards the beginning of When Harry and Sally become friends, it's all kind of cheery and nice and stuff, and then like once they're upset with each other, if you haven't seen the movie, sorry, but you should see it. It's like the best movie. But anyways, I just love how they use seasons in that film to depict what's kind of going on. And so I think it would be kind of cool to like see that in like a Disney sort of way. And maybe it's not people, maybe it's like little animals or something, and how they handle like the changing of the seasons or like the changing of the weather and what's going on. Like maybe like a Fantasia thing sort of, but like more like, instead of like crazy like Mickey Mouse colors and stuff, like maybe they're doing like crazy different weather. It's just one idea. So this one I like. The next two I really like. So you have it starts out like the fairy tale, but they're actually getting married. So the prince and the princess have already met. We don't see any of that like build up. We've seen that before. We know what happens, right? I want to see what happens after. I think everyone wants to see what happens after. Like, what happens when you get the prince? What happens when you get your fairy tale ending? Because that's not the ending. That's just the beginning, right? Like, these people are like 15. I mean, really, based on the time that they're making these movies, like the time eras, they're young kids. They got like at least another 20 years, right? So, I would love to see that, but then they not just show like the milestones, like what happens after the milestone, like what happens after the baby's born, like Cinderella up all night with a screaming baby and like the prince won't help her, or or maybe he does, if we want to show a good example, maybe he does, or they're both really exhausted, or after the baby's first birthday and like the palace is a mess from the party and how do they handle it, maybe Cinderella has to deal with some like tough PTA moms. What else? Like the kid graduating, and then Cinderella and the prince having to like figure out how to like, reconnect again. Like some serious things. Like I wonder how they could show that and a kid would find it entertaining. I don't know. But maybe Disney, it's a Cinderella movie for adults. Maybe grown-ups would like movies like this. You have an entire generation that is obsessed with Disney, okay? Like, I think you might be able to market this. Just saying. And then my third idea is it would be really fun to follow a princess who doesn't end up with Prince Charming at the end. So we see Cinderella and not Cinderella, I'm sorry, different princess. Obviously Cinderella gets Prince Charming. But we see this princess and on her journey and how hard it is to find love and, going out with different guys, but she chooses not to settle. And you see all these different versions of princes and like, just different characteristics because like, bottom line, that, I'm kind of getting higher. Prince Charming in real life is different for everybody. And everybody has their own idea of what the perfect man is. And this is what I was kind of getting at earlier when I was like, it took me a while and some nice kick in the ass to figure out what I needed in my life. But he's not like this romantic version of the perfect man who does everything perfectly, and no woman is like that either, and on the man's side of it. So it would be kind of cool to see this kind of like unorthodox guy end up being Prince Charming based off of like what this princess needed. And maybe there's some other princesses in the mix that are like kind of like, getting hitched up with guys, and we see the different personalities of the princes and what the princesses need. Because we're all princesses and we all need a Prince Charming. But my Prince Charming is going to be very different from your Prince Charming. So, that would be kind of cool to see that season of someone's life. Because I think they're kind of setting us up, It's like I said earlier, like, I just was so mixed up about what reality was really like. And it's like, I know TV and movies are fake. Like, I understand that. But then at the same time, like, I grew up watching, in high school especially, all of these old classic films with, like, Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers and Gene Kelly. And, I just was expecting this guy to dance me off my feet, literally. Like, I thought, I would find him. Men don't do that these days. They don't exist. And if they do exist, they're kind of weird. They're a little on the goofy side. And they're not, they can't be all of that, but they're still missing something. So, like, for me, like, a quality in a man is, like, someone who's very self-assured, who is kind, who's a good listener, who makes me feel safe, who makes me feel calm, and I realized I'm like, as romantic as it is to be, swept off your feet, dancing into the sunset, that's not real life. And maybe for some people they get to do things like that. But as far as the actual man that I like, he's not going to do that. And that's okay. But you have, it's hard because you have to realize that. And so, I don't know. I just think it'd be kind of fun if, like, they did a movie based off of, like, following one princess, but had some others. So we could see these different versions of princes so we could set our kids up for success. So they realize that, like, oh, not every guy is the same. Not every guy is going to be riding in on a white horse to save me, And it'd be cool to see this main princess kind of decide for herself at this moment, like, I haven't met Prince Charming yet, and that's okay. I'm 30-something years old, and I just haven't found him yet. So maybe one day, woke Disney. We can make that movie together. Anyway, so let's kind of wrap it up here. I hope you guys found this episode a little bit more fun. I think the idea of seasons of life, the seasons of life, and I'm such a good. It's the wheel of fortune. Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe this Negroni is getting to me. I'm such a pretty singer, right? No. So, but I just think it's kind of a cool concept. I like thinking of my life in more of these different seasons versus milestones. I hope my advice to you guys today was, kind of interesting or gets you thinking. Again, maybe you've already realized that, but I love being able to tell older people when they're like, oh, life is short, take advantage of it. And I'm like, yeah, I already got that figured out. And life is super long for me. Like, when I think back of different times, like, sure, I can sit here and be like, wow, 3 years, that went by really fast. But when I actually sit down to think about the 3 years, it's like, oh, wow, I've done a lot of stuff in 3 years. Okay, I'm okay with this. So I think it's nice to think of it that way, and I want to share that with you guys because especially this last year with COVID, I mean, so many people feel like they just lost a year. And it's like, we didn't. Like, what did you do this year? Really think about it. Really think of some standout moments to you that weren't just birthdays or, anniversaries or little family get-togethers that you were able to do. But really think about, like, those moments where, you got to stay home more, or you got to, do something kind of different because you couldn't travel or do whatever you wanted, you usually do. So, yeah, I think it's a more healthy and fun way to look at life versus like just being like, oh, life is short and we all die, like whatever. So, anyways, cheers, guys. Thank you for sitting through another episode. I hope you had some fun and I gave you some things to think about. Disney, hit me up. We can work together. Okay, that's my last sell on myself. But anyways, all right. See you guys.